Hello, my name is Liselle Sambury and welcome to my channel, and this is a Q&A video. Thank you so much to everyone that has subscribed to this channel. I'm now at 3,000 subscribers, which is really exciting, which is why I'm doing this whole Q&A video to celebrate. If you don't know anything about me, I'm a young adult author. My debut, Blood Like Magic, comes out this year, June 15th, and yeah, so I'm just gonna jump into the questions. I ask questions on my Instagram and on my YouTube, like on the community tab. I am sorry if I don't get to everybody's question. I tried to do as many questions as I could, but I also didn't want this to be like an hour-long video, so I couldn't get to every single question. But yes, I try to do my best. So let's go ahead and get started. First question, how long does the rough draft take you? It depends. So I will often draft a book during NaNoWriMo, or I'll try and fast draft it. And so during NaNoWriMo, of course, it's, you know, it's 30 days. So then I'll do a rough draft in 30 days. If I do a rough draft on my own, I'll often give myself a little bit more leeway. So maybe like, you know, one and a half months, like a 2-month usually maximum. I like to do fast drafts, so I don't usually like to take a lot of time with my drafting. I just like to get the story out as kind of quick as possible, so usually 1 to 2 months is as long as I take to draft. I've also done before where I've like drafted for a month and then I've taken a break and then I've drafted the rest later in another month. So I've done that as well, but usually I don't take more than 2 months to draft any project nowadays. How many hours a day do you write? Do you draft handwritten or typed? What is your favorite writing advice? What is your favorite inspirational quote? More Bobo pics or videos, please. So Bobo is my dog, me and my boyfriend's dog. It's actually like I got her for his birthday, so she's technically his dog, but our dog. Her full name is Beauregard, but we call her Bobo because she's a clown and it's shorter. Yeah, and I'll just like flash up some pictures over here while I talk about that. She's very sweet. She is, oh gosh, let me not be wrong, I think she turns 4 this year. Maybe that makes me a bad pet parent to not like know decisively, but I'm pretty sure she turns 4. And yes, how many hours a day do I write? I actually don't write for that many hours per day. Usually 2 to 3 hours a day is how much writing I do. So when I'm drafting, usually my drafting goal will be 2,000 words for the day, and I can draft 2,000 words in 40 minutes. So 2 20-minute sprints, essentially. So that will only take me, like, if I want to be generous, like an hour to reach my drafting goal in the day. If I'm editing, that takes longer, so maybe like 2 to 3 hours depending. And then like research and stuff, I don't know, I don't really pay attention to how much time that takes because I just do it kind of on the fly whenever. But I don't actually spend that much time writing in a day. Yeah. Do you draft handwritten or I always draft typed. I never handwrite. I don't like paper and I don't like writing by hand. Favorite writing advice or I don't have a favorite inspirational quote for sure. I don't really pay attention to them. Favorite writing advice. And I've talked about this before, but there was a live stream that JL, the author of Wings of Ebony, and Nick Stone, the author of many books, but like Dear Martin being her debut, and something Nick Stone had said about like being a debut is like focusing on the writing because that's the thing that you have absolute control over, and focusing in on that, and like everything else is everything else basically. And that's been like very impactful for my debut experience of like focusing on the writing and making the writing as best as you can get it, because other things are really, you know, I can't control if people give me lots of reviews or if I get like starred trade reviews or if I get on a bestsellers list. Like I can't control that stuff, but I can control making the book as good as possible. And so that's really good writing advice for me. That's more career advice than like specific writing advice, but I really like that. how does having multiple books lined up change things for you? What are the overall pros and cons of being on contract to write so far in the future? Do you feel creatively bound at all? So I don't feel creatively bound at all, because these are all books that I'm really excited about writing and that I want to write. The only real constraint on having books on contract is, for example, I can't sell any other young adult books from 2021 to 2024 to come out in that year. I guess I could sell a young adult book if they wanted to have it come out in 2025, but I couldn't have another young adult book, full-length book work come out in 2021 to 2024. I could have a middle grade come out, I could have an adult come out, and I could have a contribution to an anthology come out. So those are the things that I could, or I guess a picture. I would never write a picture book, but those are, or maybe never say never, but I don't have any plans to write a picture book. So I could have those things come out. And I think a graphic novel would also count. I could also have a graphic novel come out. So to me, that's a lot of different ways to go. And so I don't really feel creatively bound in that way. I think the only real thing to think about is if I want, and I talked about this, you can check out the video over here. I did a video that would have been more natural. I did a video talking all about my author career plans and what I'm planning to do going forward. And so I talked about the fact that, I wanted to try writing an adult to see if I could have 2 books come out in a year, a young adult title and a adult title. So that's really the big change, is that now I have those coming out. And if I have an idea, which I do for a young adult, I talk about that in that video as well, I'm planning that ahead for 2025, for example. I actually feel more secure having books lined up like that, because I know that I don't have to try and sell something until probably 2023, essentially, which is really calming for me, because I have those in the bank and I have those lined up. And of course I am going to try and sell something earlier because I want to try and sell the adult project. But to me, it brought a real sense of calm, especially being able to sell it before my first book sales come in, because in the back of my mind, I have this panic and I'm what if it tanks and no one wants to buy anything from me? And so I don't really have to worry about that right at this moment now. I'll have, by the time I'm trying to sell another young adult project, I'll have had several books worth of sales to contribute to that. It won't feel so much like it's only riding on my one book. So yeah. When did you start building your author platform? Do you believe it's essential to have a social media presence as an author? Did anyone in publishing, your agent or editor, tell you you needed a social media presence? So my agent and editor never told me I needed a social media presence at all. I think, but also I had a social media presence by the time I got my agent and editor, so that possibly contributed. Yeah, maybe. This is an interesting question about when did you start building your author platform? Because I wasn't really doing it on purpose. I had joined the book community, and so I had joined Twitter, and I happened to be there, and I just I'm a boring person, so I just didn't I have a different handle before? I did have a different handle before. I'm wrong. I had a different handle before, and then once I started writing and taking my writing more seriously, I changed my handle to be my full name, Liselle Sambury. Before it used to be LT Librarian, which was what I was doing my blog under. And then when I decided, I want to be an author, I switched over everything to Liselle Sambury. So that was it. And I don't know, I am on the social media platforms I am on because I like them. I joined YouTube because I wanted to make videos and I thought that would be fun. I was on Twitter because other people are on Twitter and it was an information thing for me. And then I eventually joined Instagram because I was yeah, everybody's on Instagram, and I worked in social media, so I was just yeah, I want to make an Instagram. It was very natural to me. But I think, so to me, I think you should be on the social media platforms that you want to be on as an author. I created a TikTok, and after it's been like 3 weeks and I was like, why did you do this? You don't want to make TikToks. I love watching TikToks. I don't care to make TikToks. And so I probably won't, but I have the account there in case anyone wants to tag me, but I'm not really probably going to use it, but I use Twitter and I use Instagram. I think it's great to have a Twitter or an Instagram just so that you can post updates, because there are some things that your publisher is just not going to post about you. So when my book was on NetGalley, when my book was on Edelweiss, my publisher doesn't post about that sort of things. They don't post, this book is now on NetGalley, or like that's not something they do, or if they do it, they do it for lead titles. And so it was really useful for me because then I could post about that on my own. It gives you a certain amount of control in that you can post about your own sort of promotions. I think the sticky thing about social media is feeling that you need to be on social media to have an impact on your sales. Because I think it's kind of like, lots of people have talked about it, and I'm going to link in the description a wonderful article by Case and Callender, where they talk all about like authors and social media, etc., that I highly recommend reading. I'll also post a link below. Lex Dunn and Michelle Schusterman also made videos about this. But my feeling is you're not gonna make the impact that your publisher can make, not even near it, with your own social media. It's just not gonna happen. I think social media can be great for giving you opportunities. I will say starting this YouTube channel did give me more opportunities, I think, in terms of panels. I think I gave myself a bit more recognition, and when people were thinking about people they wanted on certain panels, they had already seen videos of me, so they knew that I was comfortable speaking on camera. And so I think that kind of created more opportunities for me that I might not have had otherwise. But I don't think it's gonna sell books for me. And if it sells books, I don't think it will sell as many books. It will never sell as many books as my publisher, and I don't think it has this. I don't think social media always has a sort of impact that people think it does. I've seen videos where people talk about like anticipated books, and they've included my book in it, and like of the I think I watched like 8 videos or something, only one person mentioned that I had a YouTube channel. I don't even know if the other people are aware that I do. So I don't think it necessarily has the huge impact that people are kind of thinking it does. But I don't think you need to force yourself to post all the time because you think that your book will fail if you don't do that. Do you think most of your stories will take place in Canada? Would you ever write a story set in a different location? Yeah, I'll probably always do the Canada thing. I like to set stories in places where I've lived, and also because growing up, like the amount of stories set in Canada that were like young adult, like genre stories was so small. And so I've always wanted to be able to contribute to more books that are very obviously set in Canada. And so that's why I like to do that, and also because it's places that I've lived. But I do have plans, like for my adult horror, they're gonna go to another country and they'll be there for a while. So like that's part of it. And I think if I lived anywhere else, or if I went anywhere else or visited anywhere else long enough, maybe I would like set a book there as well. But for the most part, I think I'll probably stick to Canada. What are you planning for your next VIP aside from edits on already written drafts? Do you think you'll continue in the horror genre or go back to fantasy? What was your word count for Butcherbirds? Are you planning your second book to be the horror you were writing the synopsis for? So many questions, LOL. So a lot of these questions are answered over here in that video I made about my author career plans, but I will summarize it for you quickly. So my next work in progress that I'm going to work on is my adult horror, and so that'll be the next thing. So I guess I'll technically be continuing in the horror genre, but I am still going to do fantasy projects. So in that video I talk about my dark academia project, and that is a fantasy, and so that'll happen later. So I do definitely think I'm going to do bouncing around in the fantasy horror genre, and I think that's probably also because a lot of my horror is genre bending, and so I think it will also appeal to fantasy fans. Like, it'll have that crossover appeal. And so I think they all go together, and so it makes sense. So that's my kind of flow plan. I would like to sometime down the road like jump back into like a sci-fi project, like a full sci-fi project or sci-fi thriller project, but we'll see. I have an idea for a Blood Like Magic spin-off, but I don't know. We'll see how the book does and if there's demand for it. So and yes, and so the second book for the horror is the one that I was previously writing a synopsis for. Yeah, all in that video. What's your favorite and least favorite thing about traditional publishing? Congrats on 3K. I'll start with the favorite. I think my favorite thing about traditional publishing is the collaborative effort. I like having a team. I like having my agent who can help me with my edits. I like having my editor to also help me with my edits and getting that input. I like that there is a team of people who are doing all these different things for the book that I would probably not be able to do. I am not a seller. I cannot sell things. I had one very short-lived sales job in the Lego store, and I just like the anxiety I felt when I had to try and upsell things to people. Like, I'm not built for sales. And so I really like that all of that is happening. I know in traditional publishing, it can be really difficult because you don't always have super transparency into everything that is happening and everything that the team is doing. But I still like that they're doing stuff, even if I'm not like 100% exactly on what's happening at every single moment it's happening. I like knowing that that is going on and that I don't have to hold all of that in my mind and do all of that. Least favorite thing about traditional publishing, I guess just like, I feel like, yeah, I guess I feel like the general answer is kind of lack of control, but it's interesting because the things that I, coming into traditional publishing, was told, like, you don't have any control over this, I still got input on it. So I still had input on my title, I still had input on my cover, I have input on the copy, I have input on like extra details. There's so many things where even if I don't have complete control of it, I have input on it. And so that hasn't been as huge of a thing as it seems. I think in traditional publishing, the thing that I least like about it is the disappearing mid-list. So this like super heavy emphasis on like lead titles that just like have huge, enormous budgets, and then everybody else kind of just being everybody else. Like, I wish that there was just a steady, like, there was just a steady investment across the board in the mid-list, and then like a slightly higher investment in leads. Because right now it feels like leads here, and then like everybody else is like chilling over here with like the base level, and I just want a little like that, you know? Because I think that would really help, because, you know, there are titles that the mid-list can sell so steadily, and that's really great. And I feel like it would be awesome if publishing reinvested in the mid-list instead of like over investing in leads and like quite honestly setting up a bunch of them for failure, and then under investing in everybody else. So I think that that's what I would say would be like my least favorite thing about traditional publishing, and that's just kind of been a trend that's emerged. I do hope that will change in the future, but I guess we'll see. What skills do you personally think a person needs to get published? Soft skills, hard skills, anything. Persistence is a really good skill in getting published. Like, persistence. I was doing like a casual Q&A talk at my alma mater with some students in the creative writing program there, and my prof was like, what's like one piece of advice that you could give to your younger self or to give to these students? And it was persistence. Persist, persist, persist. Because to me, like, first of all, that's something you can control. And second of all, that's something that works. Like, people that are like, yeah, it took me 3 books, 4 books, 5 books, 6 books, 10 books to get published. The end result of the publishing is like continuing on, like honing your craft, trying to get better. Openness is really important. If you're not open to critique, you're never going to get better. And that's just that, like, period. If you get feedback and you always are like, no, I disagree, I'm gonna do whatever I want and not listen to anything that you said, and you do that every time you get critique, you are never going to get better at writing, because you're never going to learn more, you're never going to try more. And honestly, that's like a bad attitude to have going into publishing anyway, because you're going to have agents and editors and you are going to have critiques, and like just saying no is not going to be enough. Yeah, persistence, openness. I know people say like tough skin for rejections, but like honestly, like I'm so soft and I'm still all right. Just like the ability to like get yourself back up, I think is enough. You don't have to have the toughest skin in the world, you just have to be able to get back up. So yeah, persistence and openness are like the 2 big things that come to mind. Congrats on 3K subs. When do you know you're ready to start drafting? How can you tell an idea is good enough to be a story or writing project you actively pursue? So, the short answer is I don't. But mostly when I decide to draft a project, it's because I'm really, really passionate about it. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I make little notes in my phone in my notes app when I have an idea going, and like the more little notes I keep making for an idea and the more it sticks in my head and the more passion I have for it, the more I'll be like, okay, yeah, like this is ready to draft. I'm ready to like get going, and then I'll start plotting it. And usually during the plotting phase, like if I break down in the plotting phase already and like am already upset and like hate it at that point, I probably won't ever get to drafting. But I'll plot it, and if I can plot the full thing, great, and then I'll start drafting. But sometimes I start drafting and I'm like, you know what, this isn't it. Even after I've thought about it, I've been passionate about it, I've plotted, I've done all that stuff. So sometimes you kind of just have to jump in and see, but I usually just pick the project I have the most passion for and start drafting that. How do you publish in the US if you're living in another country? Asks a Dutch person. As a Canadian person, you get an agent that submits to US publishers. And that's kind of like, to my knowledge, that's it. Really. You get your agent, and your agent submits you to US publishers, and then you can get a US publisher. I know people in the UK who have like UK agents and they submit to UK publishers, so then they get published in the UK, and then maybe later they might sell US rights and that sort of thing, or they publish in the US first. Essentially, yeah. Yeah, submitting to a US publisher and having them agree to publish you, or selling foreign rights to a US publisher if you're already published in a different country. How did you decide to start an Authortube channel, and what advice would you give someone thinking about starting one? So I knew I wanted to start an Authortube channel because I was interested in video content creation, and I wanted to try doing that. I wanted to try starting a YouTube channel and doing that sort of thing. And I, of course, had watched other YouTubers, like I had watched like Alexa Dunn and Kate Kavanaugh and like that sort of thing, and I was like, oh, I would like to do that, but I wasn't sure how comfortable I would be. And so I did an IGTV video first, and I did that to see if I could post consistently, like if I could keep up with a once-a-week schedule, and if I could be comfortable on camera. And it was really like low entry level because I just used my phone, I edited on my phone, I made my little thumbnails on my phone, I just did everything like that, and it was like low entry level, and I just wanted to see if I could keep up with it. And then I had done that for like, I don't even know how long, maybe like 6 months or something like that. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to move to YouTube. And so then I bought myself a camera because I wanted to have a camera. You can just use your phone. I'm just extra. And because I wanted to like be in video content creation. I wanted to use the video content creator tools. This was like partially a professional thing, you know. I wanted to be able to, because I was working in social media at the time, I wanted to be able to add that to like my resume and that sort of thing. So I got a professional camera and I used Premiere Pro to edit. You don't have to do that. You can use your phone. You can start however you want. I think, yeah, that's kind of my advice. You can start however you want. You don't have to give advice. You can just show your writing journey. You don't have to have like had anything published or anything like that. You can just start and like start sharing your journey with people. The only thing I would say that you should try and do is try and be consistent. So pick one day of the week or one day of the month or one day every 2 weeks that you're going to post a video and commit to that. And like do your little thumbnails, spend effort on your thumbnails. That's another like tip that I do think is important, because that's how you're trying to draw people in to watch your videos. And then if you can, I didn't do this myself, so it's not, I didn't follow my own advice. If you can, try and start out with shorter videos, so videos that are under like 20 minutes, just so that you can get people in, because when you have longer videos and nobody knows you, it's harder for them to invest in that time commitment. So that's the advice that I would give, and just like jump in and try it out and see how you like it. That's really the best way to get into it and see if it's for you, is to just kind of try. Do you think it's important to read outside of your age category and genre? So I know a lot of authors that will be like, yeah, I think it's really important that you like read outside of your like age genre and your category so that you can like learn stuff from the other genres and categories to like incorporate into your own work. And I honestly like have zero opinion about that. I don't know. I'm just like, I don't care. Like maybe it would be helpful, but it's not something that I would like go out and like encourage gung-ho, because I don't know that it makes any difference. I personally, I just read what I like. So I read a lot of like YA fantasy and like horror and that sort of thing. I also read adult fantasy and horror. I read adult thrillers. I read nonfiction. I just read what I like. How do you read consistently? I do read a lot more consistently now. This is the most consistently I've ever read. And really what I do is well, first of all, I'm a mood reader, so I just read according to my mood. But I'll usually, when I start a book, I'll like see how many pages it is, and I'll like set myself a goal. So like usually with like a 200 to 220 page book, I'm like, I can read this in a day, and I'll like pick a day to spend the whole day reading it. Obviously, if it's like a 400 page book, I'll usually be like, okay, I'm gonna read 100 pages a day to be done. And then I'll like audiobooks I listen to basically whenever I'm doing a task where I can listen to an audiobook. I'm like cleaning, I'm washing my hair, I'm doing whatever, and that's when I'll listen to an audiobook. So then I'm just like gradually cycling through audiobooks in that way. And usually I like to read at night, so like I'll go to bed at 10 and I'll read my 100 pages or whatever then, because it's like I've already done all my stuff during the day. I've like watched my shows and I've done my work and all of that, and now I can use this as my wind down time. And that's really the only thing that I do to read consistently, is I just set myself those little mini goals, and just like when I finish a book, I like basically immediately pick up another book, and that's how I've read consistently. What is your favorite story you've written so far? This is an interesting question. So I am fickle. I'm oh so fickle. I have no loyalty. My favorite book that I've written is always like the most recent book that I've written. Because I haven't had to reread that book as much, and so I automatically like it more. So that's kind of like, I'm so terrible and fickle like this. So my like favorite book that I've written has nothing to do with the quality of the book, and has everything to do with how many times I've been made to read it. So like, and then like also like when more time has passed. So like Butcher Birds, I love, I'm so excited about, and I'm like, you are my favorite, because I've had a recent win with it, so I've recently sold it. I haven't had to reread it for months, and I probably won't have to reread it for months still. And I haven't read it that many times to begin with. And so I'm like, yeah, my heart is there. I love you so much. But I guarantee that once I have gone through all the publisher's edits with it, I'll have another project that I love. I'll be like in love with my adult horror, or I'll be in love with my dark academia. This is how I cycle through favorites. And so I love all of my books. I really do. Like, I love all my books. Of course I love Blood Like Magic. I'm just like fickle. And once I've had to read it too many times, it ceases being my favorite, because I'm like, I'm done with you. I don't want to do you anymore. I don't want to be involved. And so that's my thing. So you can put zero stock into what I say is my favorite book I've written, because it's always the most recent one, because I haven't had to reread it. So do you have any plans to write MG, which is middle grade? I don't. So, I can't even remember the videos that I talked about this, but anyway, I had written a young adult book, and then my agent had suggested, what if this was like middle grade, because it had felt young, because I had done young protagonists. They were like 14, 15. And so I was like, okay. So then I tried middle grade, and then I aged them down more, and I don't think I have a good eye for middle grade voice. I don't know if it's because I tried to change age range. Maybe if I had started at a middle grade age, maybe that would have been different. But I just don't feel like I have the eye for that. The sort of middle grade I would want to write, I think, is actually probably lower YA. And lower YA, like in TradPub, is like so hard to sell. So hard. And so hard to like have them market, because they've created that gap in which like 14 and 15-year-olds don't seem to exist, and it's weird. So anyways, the long and short story of that is I don't have any plans to write any middle grade anytime soon. How has the shift and balance of life and writing been now that you write full-time? It's been like high-key awesome. I'm really happy to be writing full-time. Like, I can feel the difference in quality of life. And that's not to say that I like hated my day job or anything like that. I actually quite liked my day job. I thought it was really good. I worked at a company that also had a lot of great perks. But there's also like, you know, there's the general like employee drama, or like the difficulty and the stress of like constantly trying to move up. So every year I was like I planned out all my goals, and you work with your like your manager and all that stuff to like get your goals ready. And it was just, I was constantly trying to do all of this stuff. Some of the stuff that I was quite honestly like uncomfortable with and didn't really want to do. Like, I don't really like doing a lot of public speaking, but I was forcing myself to do public speaking because that made me more visible in the company, and it made me more likely to get a raise. And so I was forcing myself to do all of this stuff that I quite honestly just like didn't want to do, because I wanted to be seen in a certain way so that I could get a raise, so that I could eventually create for myself like a comfortable wage. And so that was really stressful, because I was not only doing my regular work, I was constantly trying to overperform so that people could notice me overperforming so that I could be paid more. And like, that was just like, it was just peak stress. Like, it's so difficult. And it was just like really, yeah, it made things stressful for me. And so I was constantly like working so hard towards that. Versus like writing, now I feel very free. I create my own hours. I'm not just sitting and writing when I have nothing to write because it's like 9 to 5 or something like that. When I'm doing public speaking and like that sort of thing. It's public speaking that I want to do. Like it's panels that I want to be on, topics that I enjoy, things that I want to do. And I'm writing what I want. I'm working hard at my own writing, and then everything else is like I'm doing what I want to do. I want to do YouTube videos, or I want to sit and read for half the day. I want to work on this steadily for 2 weeks, and then I want to take 2 weeks off to do nothing. I think it'll be even better once COVID is not a thing, because then I could travel places and do all that sort of thing. It's just like really the freedom to define my own career. And I know that people talk a lot about like the things you can't control in traditional publishing and that sort of thing, but I have basically complete control of my work and my work schedule and the extracurricular things I want to do, and so I feel really free to do that. And so that's been great for my work-life balance, because like I answered in a previous question, I actually don't spend that much time each day writing. I sit down and I do like 2 to 3 hours, or 1 to 3 hours really of like hard work, and then I just like, I'm done. And then I do whatever I want with the rest of the day. Sometimes obviously I have like daily chores and like that sort of thing. But like every day I wake up and I'm like happy. Just like, I don't have that, you know, when you wake up and you know you have to go to work and you just like get like piled on with that dread of like, oh, I have to go work. And like on Sunday, on the weekend, because you know you have to go to work next day, and you're like, even when you like your job. So like I don't have any of that. I like wake up fresh as a daisy and just like happy to go on with my life. And sometimes I do like dread writing for that day when I'm like, oh, I have to edit like 3 chapters or whatever, but I like when I sit down to do it, I enjoy it. Yeah, so that it's been really great overall. Hi, editing Liselle. So I started editing this video. I didn't expect to answer all the questions, but then I did answer all the questions that I had as of Thursday, March 4th. This video will be posting, March 12th on Friday. So yeah, so that made the video super long. So instead of posting like one mega long video, I decided to split this into parts. So this is the end of part 1, and then on Tuesday next week I will post part 2. So this is the end of this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and tune in next week for part 2 of the Q&A.